Despite unprecedented advances around the world, I would contend not a single country has truly achieved gender equality. The BRICS Women's Business Alliance here in South Africa is going to be hosting the Gender Dividend debate. It's coming up on the 14th of July, so that'll be tomorrow to unpack the issue. KZN Premier Nomusa Dube-Ncube going to be one of the panelists joining us to take a look at what is expected. Premier, good morning to you and thank you very much indeed for your time. What's the hope to come out of this? Because you and I have spoken before about gender disparity, but I don't get a sense, but please correct me if I'm wrong, that we're actually making any real progress for women here in our country.
Yes, good morning, Gareth, and your viewers. It is very true. That is why we're excited to be hosting this BRICS Gender Dividend dialogue in collaboration with BRICS Women Business Alliance. We really need to create that platform, Gareth, for women entrepreneurs, business leaders, and government leaders to really engage in a robust discussion on the political economy of gender in a multipolar world. You would know, as you correctly say, that we still have a huge gender divide between even within our communities, be they in the rural or even in the urban. But also it's across the color line. And that is why we believe that it's still very important, even up today, that we really discuss as to how do we get women to really participate equally in these issues, particularly on the issues of economy. Given that, women constitute more than 50% of the population of our country here in South Africa. So we really want to turn the promises into action with regards to gender equality by 2030, because we hear everyone, the heads of states, all the sectors talking about wanting to close the gap, but practically it's still not there.
Yeah, it's not. And I wanted to ask about patriarchy in this space as well, in fact, in a number of sectors and spaces in our country, especially within, as you mentioned, Premier, the economy. The sooner and the more we can get into the boardrooms and get more women on the boards of companies and into the decision-making rooms, that then has a trickle-down effect from top down as well. How do we try and get away from this boys' club that some people still call it in South Africa, because that's where you start. You're in a position of influence and you can influence down.
No, definitely, Gareth. I think it's also important, as we always say, that as women as well, we need to be able to ensure that what we bring on the table is equally not disputable, because that is the other thing that we cannot just come as women, but we also need to, enforce the fact that women have got very good, products that are there. Recently we were fighting and talking about how women need to ensure that there's a lot of their goods that have got patent, because women are innovative. Women, have got a lot of things that they are doing, but they don't patent their goods. As a result, they lose out in a huge business and income that they should be getting from those products that they are having, including women, in the private sector, women in the business sector, women in the large, socio-economic, areas, and that is why we do need now and again to sit down as women and say what it is that we are doing, who's doing what, how do we collaborate, how do we network, how do we make sure that we also as women play our game as women, because we don't want to be men, but we want to also be equally recognized, equally as well, that whatever that we bring on the table is recognized as equally as other genders in our society. Indeed, you are correct, Gareth. Patriarchy still plays a huge role. I'm a witness of that. I've experienced it personally myself. So I know, if I can experience it at this, position where I am at, how about, other women in various various stratas of our society. So we also need to look at how our urban resilience and sustainable development is also impacting on the poor, particularly women in the township, women in the rural areas. So we really, expected that this conference take place on the background of another BRICS Urbanization Forum 2023 that is going to be taking place on the 26th of July here again in KwaZulu-Natal, where we are calling on cities, how do they manage the rapid urbanization, rural urban migration, climate change, so that they can become centers of innovation and creativity. But all of that, again, at the center of all our discussion is about our women. It's about ensuring that the young girls also have got the space in those discussions that we're talking about.
I couldn't agree more, especially from the rural aspect as well, because a lack of information, I would suggest, also leads to a lack of opportunities. Premier, and I just hope I got that right. The BRICS Urbanization Forum, 26th of July, that's something I'd like to pick up with, if not with you, maybe someone else on that topic closer to the time. Premier, as I start saying goodbye to you, I'm sure you would expect me to ask the question, certainly as South Africa would, just your view on the truck attacks in KZN at the moment. I'm sure this must be very worrying for you and your provincial government. What's your response to this, and how do you think it's been handled so far?
Well, Gareth, we are very, concerned about the economic sabotage that is happening in our country, and particularly here in KwaZulu-Natal. We had an in-depth discussion about it yesterday. We are going to be convening an urgent meeting where we're also calling on our national counterparts, our ministers, all the ministers, Minister of Police, Minister of Labour, International Relations, and other ministers, to really look at what is at the core of whatever that, whoever is concerned about. But what we are saying as we condemn this act of sabotage is that there are different ways of communicating and there are different ways of voicing your unhappiness, but it can't be at the expense of demolishing the economy that we're still trying so much to recover from all the devastation that we have been facing. Here in KwaZulu-Natal, we've really, impacted very badly, whether it's floods, whether it's riots, whether it's COVID-19, and we're really working very hard to recover from that. And we cannot afford, yet again, to have these setbacks that we are seeing and we are having. That is why we are also happy that the Minister, of Police has really swiftly come in here, and there are arrests that are imminent, and we are going to be working with all law enforcement agencies, including the labor, to understand what it is really that needs to happen, but how do we stop what is happening right now.
Premier, I appreciate your time and all the very best with this conference that's going to be taking place tomorrow. It's on the 14th of July. That's the KZN Premier. It's Nomusa Dube-Ncube. It is the Gender Dividend debate. It's part of the BRICS Women's Business Alliance. My thanks, Premier, to you this morning for making time and also just giving us a sense of how she sees the truck attacks down in KZN.